Hi guys, I've split it into two this time, just because I don't want to make too long a video and bore everybody. But I've got the German Rheinmetall Fuchs to build. It's proving to be a lovely model actually. But I just wanted to do like a really plain, small diorama for it. But trying something different, because last time I did a diorama for the KV2, I mixed too much plaster. So what I did was just put a block of plaster into a bag. You see me doing it here. So I poured, while it was still liquid, I poured it into like a pie case, just so it had set, because I wanted to use it as kind of rubble, different grades, different sizes. I'd seen it done, but I've never done it myself, and I'm always a fan of reusing waste materials, and definitely a fan of making my own ballast kind of stuff rather than buying it. So yeah, I hit it with a hammer, and it turned out pretty good actually. There was when I realised I was mixing too much, I poured some off that was quite diluted, just so I wouldn't use all my plaster up. So there was a combination of like two different grades. One was quite soft because it had been very wet, and one was very dry and hard. But I've combined the two anyway. They'll dry in time. So I left it very rough. I could have gone a bit more on it actually, because I'd probably use more of the dust than the boulders in my dioramas. So I should have broke the big bits up, but you know, it worked out for me. The model I'm doing is just the standard box art German version, with the NATO green, NATO black camouflage. But the UK had Tpz1 Fuchs in Afghanistan, or at least in the Middle East, and they were in a buff kind of sand colour. But the decals that come with the Revell Germany kit are just the German version in Germany and the German version deployed to Afghanistan. And I like the camouflage, and it's different to what I've got. It's different to what I've got in the cabinet, so I do it. I mean, if you've not made that Revell model, there's just loads of surface. If you're somebody who, like me, you enjoy the painting of it, there's so many just surfaces. Oh, it's just going to be a beauty to paint. I've built it. I've not yet painted it, and I'll record chunks of it from here on in. But I don't want to record all the building of things. You know, the instructions are clear in the instruction booklet. Just follow the instructions. You know, a bit more creativity involved once it's built, and you're putting it on a diorama, and you're painting it, and you're choosing a scheme for it, you're weathering it and making decisions about that. There's a lot of unused parts on it, I think, because you get several different weapons options. So I feel like the sprues have still got loads of stuff on, but I've more or less come to the end with it. It's huge. It's huge. So the diorama's probably, for me, it's an average sized board that I'm working on here. But considering the size of the model, which is bigger than most of my tanks, I'm calling it a small diorama, you know, because there's not going to be a lot of it visible. So yeah, so what I've done, got the basic board, and again, like I say, when I was doing the KV2, if you've seen that video from a week or so ago, I mixed too much plaster. So I just happened to have this board next to my work desk, and I had the pie tin that you can see in shot there. So I filled the pie tin with the intention to smash them up, and I just put a flat layer on this board, and I just ran my finger back and forth across the middle of it to just denote like a rutted road. I was kind of thinking on my feet because I had too much plaster mixed and I didn't know what to do with it all. I didn't want to waste it all. So the board was textured, so it's adhered to it really well. But it's a very simple relief. The actual plaster work on there was just plain. I had no intentions at all about it at that stage. So when I then turned from the KV2 to the Fuchs, which is very different, really well engineered. I'm not saying the Zvezda don't well engineer the models, but they, well, yeah. The Revell felt very different. Everything fits together really, really beautifully, and it's solid, it's sturdy, and it's a lovely thing to handle. But yeah, when I switched to the Fuchs, I wanted to put it in the Middle East or Central Asia, wherever you want to place Afghanistan, because it was a recent vehicle, recently used, and so I went back to this flat plaster surface and thought what I could do with it. So really, all this diorama is about is using up waste plaster from a previous diorama, but doing it creatively. So the texture on the rubber tires that you get with the Fuchs is really clear and lovely. There's not even a seam in it. It's really, the tires are beautiful, and the wheels themselves when they're finished are beautiful. So my main job was to use the Daz clay, air drying clay. I'm onto my next box now, my next tub now, and it's the terracotta I've got instead of the plain stone one, the plain grey one. It's a bit harder to paint over. It's a bit harder to hide the colour of it, really. But yeah, so all I wanted to do was just make sure that the tread, the detail of the tread was clear on the diorama, and so that's all I'm doing here, is turning the road into a specific road for that vehicle. And they operated in groups, so I wasn't like running the tyre marks to the actual model. I was making the road rutted by that type of vehicle. You know, maybe I should have built up the sides so that there was actually a rut, a trench where the tyre had gone. But I was just thinking, you know, it's sand and loose gravel and dirt. It's been pushed aside. You know, if I was doing a really wet road in northern climates, then I would have used polystyrene probably to build up the sides so that the tyre tread actually went into the mud. I think the Fuchs is 25 tonnes, so it certainly would leave an indentation, but this kind of rocky road, my idea was that it'd be fine like this, just disturbing, just pushing aside the dirt. So I find the Das clay is lovely to deal with, absolutely lovely to deal with. I've never had it crack. I've never had it peel up or come loose, fall off, you know. It's just a lovely material to use, especially when you open a new pack like this, nice and soft. I wrapped it well in plastic, and there's no shortage of plastic when you when you're opening model boxes and everything's plastic wrapped. So I've double wrapped it, I think, to keep it moist. And I've found that that's fine, you know, for a couple of months. It never dries up. It's magic stuff. So yeah, I've got a massive tub of Decorators PVA. It is strong stuff, and I'm not diluting it on this first layer. I do dilute it once the gravelly kind of surface is down. I'll dilute it again to get in between the nooks and crannies and grab any odd little bits that are still loose. Main reason I've not done a diorama like this with the loose materials and the gravelly kind of texture is because I don't airbrush. I hand paint with a brush. So obviously you can see there it's going to need a lot of PVA to fix it properly, because when you're going over it with a brush it's going to disturb it. But you know, I didn't have too many problems. I swept over it a couple of times. Just swept over it a couple of times with the spray bottle that I have, which is an old oil spray, like you know, the 1 calorie spray bottles, and it's about 50-50 water and PVA glue. So I use that to fix the loose materials. You may have noticed before I did measure, it's a 3-inch wide axle, the Fuchs. So I did measure between the tracks, because obviously the model at this stage isn't built. So I was just making sure that it would sit roughly right. You know, it's like I say, it's going over the previous vehicle's tracks, so I'm not worried too much about it being perfect. There's probably a better way of doing this, guys. If you've got any suggestions, always, if you see me doing something and you know that you know an easier way of doing it, just please put it in the comments. I've noticed that the street where I live, there's a kind of residue down the gutter, which is broken up stones and damage to the road over the years, and it's very similar to this mixture that I have in the tray here. And I've thought to myself, I can go out with a dustpan and brush and just fetch some of this kind of, it's like a combination of the surface of the road being crushed into different size granules and textures. The only thing with that is I'll get it back in the house, and it'll be like, there'll be, you know, plastic in there, there'll be bits of broken glass in there, there'll be all the kind of detritus of you know, just sweeping up a chunk of gutter, a space of gutter, you know. So I'd rather do it like this. And I know that there's just plaster in this tub, but yeah, if you keep your eyes open, that's all I do, wander around and spot things that I can reuse for diorama surfaces. Yeah, I've probably not described that well, but it's kind of the loose surface detritus of a tarmac road that breaks down into various different size pieces, and I will get some, and I'll see how that behaves, see if it behaves any differently. Be a bit lighter, because this mixture still has some moisture in it, so it's quite heavy. This is a tester as well, because I've got a diorama which I've featured on different videos, at least on my video where I showed the majority of my built dioramas that I've done over the last year. And it's a desert scene from the Second World War with a Chevrolet truck and an SAS Jeep. And I feel like it's a little bit cramped, and I'm going to do it, I'm going to redo it, the same models and men, but just make a better surface and make a longer model, a longer diorama, with a road on it, a winding road. So bearing that in mind, I wanted to get like a decent desert appearance that I could reuse. While the PVA glue's a little bit wet still, it is the clay field's a little bit like not very stable, but you know, it's dry now, as you're going to see in a second, and it becomes very stable. It's very hard wearing and forgiving, the DAS clay. Always open to suggestions, guys, of any materials you use to get realistic surfaces. Please do leave comments, and I'm certainly no expert at this. I'm making it up as I go along, trying to do it on a shoestring. And when I do give in and purchase a product, I always feel like, you know, I should have been using it all along. But so I've used some static grass just bunched up in my fingertips and pushed into like the corners between the rocks. So it is desert-like, but not the sandy desert. It's more like the rocky desert that you'd see in Central Asia between the mountains, where the German and the British armies were fighting the Taliban. So tune back in, guys, when I put my next video up. It'll be finishing off the Fuchs, tidying it up, and putting it on this diorama. Thanks for watching.